Hey everyone, it's Ron Howe from RB Bass Outdoor. What time of year is it? It's holiday season, of course, man. Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope you and your family have great plans coming up. Stay warm, stay safe, slow down out there driving on the highways. Let's be safe and courteous this holiday season. With that said, what time is it? Fishing report time, right? An update. RB Bass Outdoors, every year we host a holiday party. We choose a small lake venue. We've bounced around from Collins to Comanche, and this year we had some things thrown at us that just aren't normal. The state found golden mussels on the California Delta on a buoy, and since has lost their mind. And so they started closing all kinds of things, and the closure is coming from the water agencies. The truth is, these places are concerned with their pumping of water and how they make their money. So they're closing everything down, making it difficult to know where to fish and what to do. And we plan these parties. I mean, they're annual, right? So technically they're planned a year in advance. And so we had to kind of change our dynamics this year. We've been staying at Comanche. This is our 4th year because we love the cabins. It's right by the launch ramp. Some of the people's girls and wives come, and it's a family party, right? So this year, with the golden mussel discovery, we had a sudden shutdown, about maybe a week or so, 2 weeks prior to the event. I happened to have been out of state in South Carolina fishing beautiful Lake Murray. In Carolina, they want you to fish and hunt. Seems like in California, they don't. It's just the way it feels as an angler right now, right? So anyways, Comanche was shut down. We already paid for reservations. While I was gone, some of our teammates went ahead and called Lake Amador, that's privately owned, and said they would not be shutting down in a panic over a golden mussel. So we kind of had to shuffle the deck. We weren't even allowed to bring our boats into the gate and keep them at our cabins at Comanche. They won't allow it. You had to go park in their yard or go leave your boat somewhere else. So one of our friends lives local to Lake Comanche, allowed us to go ahead and park our boats in there. We made it happen. We rolled up to Lake Amador. Let's get to the good stuff now, right? Got to Lake Amador. It's RB Bass's holiday party, and we had breakfast there. It was not an intent to launch early. We knew that the trout fishermen were going to be there. The lake's been heavily planted with jumbo trophy trout, cuppos, rainbows, and that golden-looking thing that they like to talk about, a big old lightning trout, right? And you can see them swimming around all over the lake. 3, 4, 5, 6 pound lightning trout. So Amador's fully stocked to the gills with giant trout, but we're there old school. We're trying to be fan-bastic, right? We're trying to catch largemouth bass. That's what's in this fishery. The bait fish that live there are predominantly shad and crawfish, right? There's some bluegill, there's some red ear sunfish, there's crappie, there's humongous catfish in Lake Amador. But when I was a kid, they called the place fan-bastic. So we have a bragging rights event. We just go out and have fun and try to see who catches the biggest fish for a day between our RB Bass Outdoors team. We start off at breakfast in the morning. Excellent there at the cafe. We rolled out and launched just before 9 o'clock, got on the water. It's a single lane ramp right now. So you need to be patient, okay? There's going to be people fishing right by that ramp. One ramp in and one ramp out, getting your boats in and out might take some time. Again, other lakes are closed. People are forced to adjust and go where they can get on the water. So Amador can be a little crowded. Now, because they're stocking a lot of trout, you're going to expect people trolling. They got their planer boards out to the side. You have your kayakers kind of all over out there trolling because they've got the high-end trolling motors on their kayaks now. Just cruise by on plane. Give these guys space. No one had any problems with anybody, and the lake was packed. It's a smaller lake, and the water's drawn down. We still had no issues and nobody yelled at anybody out there. Kayakers weren't mad. We went around them, stayed on plane so we didn't overly wake them, and had no problems all day. Let's get to fishing. I went out there for 2 days. I went out on Friday. Beautiful, cold morning, 38, 30-something degrees. Warmed up quickly. Literally by 10:30, you were pulling all your stuff off. Some of our friends were even shorts and a t-shirt. It was so warm. 65 degrees in the winter in California can feel like a summer day darn near. Fishing was okay. Fish were shallow early. They were biting almost anything. I mean, we were fishing next to our buddies' boats and seeing them catch one on a Senko, a jig, and a drop shot all in a 5-minute window. And then it would get tough in between that, right? And you just kind of had to grind. Being that we started after 9 o'clock, I didn't toss a ton of reaction, but over the 2 days I was there, I threw an A-rig, I am a rip bait, I threw crankbaits and chatterbaits. Didn't get any bites on any of that, and I would throw them for 500 cast or so, or 200 cast when the breeze was right or I wanted to cover water, and just didn't run into any shallow reactive fish, but they were reacting to plastics when you threw them in there. So how did I catch fish? Dart head. There was a lot of reports about bites on dart heads, anywhere from orange crusher roboworms to red crawler to morning dawn to margarita mutilator and shad worms on the drop shot. All those got bites from multiple anglers that were out there, all of our friends, including myself. And for me, the number one thing that I figured out was the jig. I threw the Kitech half-ounce brown and purple finesse jig with the green pumpkin double tail Yamamoto brown, purple, cinnamon jig trailer, right? Like nothing fancy here, right? 5-inch DT staple for wintertime fishing. So how were they biting? What was going on there, right? Fish were on points and fish were on the side of creek guts and also the backs of creek channels. You kind of got to know the lake. I've been fishing there since I was a kid and was able to navigate through these things. But even with that, the bite was overall kind of a grind for 3-4 hours. But then, man, 2 o'clock came, those fish start chewing. As that evening time comes, those fish are starting to really fire off on the bait. And you can see it on your graph. They're going off down there. You just got to figure out how to bite them. There were some reports on good bites on jigging spoons. There were some bites on Alabama rigs as you burn them up to the boat. For me, it was the jig. Day one, vertical walls, up tight, but the key was you couldn't have your rod to the side, you had to have it up. And you lift that jig up like this and follow it down the ledges. Lift that jig up and follow it down the ledges. They were biting from the bank out to 32, 33 feet. So you either got bit right up shallow on your first or second lift up, and they were chomping it. I mean, it was down. That's when I realized, jig bite turned on, and I was able to just kind of bounce around on vertical walls being the key no matter where you're at on the lake, and started catching fish. And literally in the last hour of the day on Friday, I caught 8 fish. So it was a nice last hour. Before that, I think I had 6 or 7 fish all day, and then the last hour, I caught 8. I wish I would have stayed, but we had to go back and set up camp, right? Go back and start the party for the RB Bass holiday season. So that was day one. Day two, we have our little bragging rights thing. We go out in 10 boats, 20 guys are out there fishing and having fun. At Lake Amador again, we had breakfast, launched on the lake, no issues. Day two fishing was kind of the same but different. So I went back and start off with a jig right away. The way they were eating it the day before, I thought for sure I could manifest a jig bite, but it started off extremely tough. You got bites, it just was a grind. One here, one there, one in a couple on a Senko, which I had to mix in there because they got real slick and calm and they weren't eating the jig right. They were kind of bumping it. So I'd switch up to a Senko and then I would catch fish, right? So a couple jig, couple Senko, a couple on a dart head, no reaction again, even though this trip I threw a rig and rip bait on the second day. Just wasn't going. We kind of struggled, had a small, 5 fish limit in the boat, so to speak. We talked to various people. One guy had a 4-pounder, one had a 3, another one had a 3, but they didn't have limits or they barely had a small limit. It was pretty grindy out there overall, but people all caught fish, all got bites all over the whole lake. In the last hour, and I knew 2 o'clock's the dinner bell, we went back to one of my spots that I got bit on that day before with that jig in that last hour, and literally in a 30-minute window, we caught 10 fish up to 3.5 pounds. It was good. The trick was we had to change that jig, and we just didn't adjust all day. I was still working the pull-up method, trying to get it to come down the ledges and then don't get that bite or, get down out deep and then get that scrub bite off the bottom, and it wasn't happening. The drag wasn't working. The lift up wasn't happening. They just changed on it, but everyone I talked to got bit on a jig, and usually a better fish. It was just random. Well, when we got to that last hour, it wasn't random. I knew where fish were at. I got bit there the day before, so let's get on that spot, and I did. But still, we weren't getting bit, and so I started going to, you know what? Even though these fish are in a negative mode, I'm going to start snapping the jig. And I mean pop, pop, pop on slackline. Pop, 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 and immediately, boom, fish. Got it in the boat, and it was like a 3-pounder. I'm like, sweet, boom, nice little fish. Catch that. I'm all happy. We're getting towards the end of our fishing day. And next cast, man, once I had that pop figured out, it was over. Fish. Next cast, fish. Next cast, fish. Told my buddy Jacob Swain, here, let me tie this jig on. Get the jig all set up, throw it to him. Here, tie that on. He catches 4 in a row. Back-to-back 4 in a row, 2 guys. And then we kind of were trading blows. A fish, a fish, a fish. And then it was 3:30, and it was time to go back and meet up with our friends. So Lake Amador, a lot of bass in there. They're not receiving a ton of bass fishing pressure. It's going to be a little grindy at times. You got to make adjustments all day. Keep your mind open. You'll hear a great West Coast legend say that named Greg Gutierrez. Keep your mind open and pay attention to detail. And if you do that and you make adjustments for the day, you're going to figure out how to get some bites and have some fun. Beautiful, amazing weather. Breakfast was amazing at Lake Amador. You don't spend any money on gas in your boat. You do spend it at the entry. And that's just the way it is. Bring yourself a trout pole. Maybe catch a couple trout, bring home for food. Go out and catch some bass. And you never know, on that pond, there is gigantic bass. I've caught several double-digit fish there over my lifetime and have lost the biggest bass I've ever seen in my life. And my biggest to date is a 1382, and that was a minnow compared to what I've hooked at Amador when I was younger. So check out Lake Amador. It's a great winter lake destination. Great to bring your kids and your wife and go out and fish off the spillway if you're a banker, or go up and have breakfast at the shop. They've been there forever. They're family-owned. Check out Lake Amador. This is RB Bass Outdoors. Ron Howe checking out. Happy holidays. And for me, it's Merry Christmas. See ya.